If you're looking for the lowest risk, highest return, lowest barrier to entry, and easiest side hustle or real estate model to start in 2025 and 2026, this video will be your holy grail. We're going to be talking about three things today. First is, what is Airbnb co-hosting and how does it work? Second, we're going to be talking about why there is so much opportunity out there for you as a co-host. And third, we're going to be talking about how you can find your first co-host deal in as little as 30 days. We've got a lot to cover today on this little known but crazy effective real estate and online business strategy of 2025-2026. So let's dive in. Okay, first things first, what is Airbnb co-hosting? So Airbnb co-hosting is when you essentially manage somebody else's property as an Airbnb and then you collect a commission for it. You may have noticed that when you book an Airbnb, there's often a host and then there's typically somebody who is a co-host. Now, you can think of the co-host as somewhat of a property manager for the Airbnb, although it's a little bit different, and we're going to talk about the nuances between a property manager and a co-host from a legal perspective, although this is not legal advice. But essentially, co-hosting is when you take over the day-to-day operations and management of an Airbnb for a property owner. You don't have to buy the property. You don't have to buy the furniture. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to sign a lease. All you need to do is sign an agreement with the property owner, list it as an Airbnb, and then manage the day-to-day operations. And you get a commission for that each month. So let me give you a rough idea of how the math works on this, and then I'll actually give you some specific examples from my own portfolio on what's possible with this. So let's say, for example, you're managing a property that does about $8,000 per month in revenue on Airbnb. If you subtract the cleaning costs, you will be taking a percentage of the net revenue on the property. So what do I mean by that? We're going to subtract the rough cleaning costs from that $8,000. So let's say it's about $1,000 per month. We're left over with $7,000. And let's assume that you have a 20% agreement with the landlord. That means you would end up with a take-home cash flow net profit for yourself of $1,400 per month off that property. That's ridiculous considering you're taking on no risk, no lease, no furniture costs, no property costs. You own nothing. That's it. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what workload am I doing as a co-host? Like, what is it that I'm actually responsible for managing? So it's important to recognize that Airbnb and short-term rentals is a business model. And what you're doing is you are taking the business component of it out of it for the landlord, right? So that means you'll be managing the day-to-day guest interaction. So messaging guests, coordinating cleaners to clean the property, coordinating handyman to fix minor repairs here and there, and restocking the property for paper towels, toilet paper, or any of that stuff. Now, the beautiful thing is about everything that I just said, you are not actually financially responsible for those expenses. The landlord still is. You are just responsible for the actual management of it, like the physical ordering, the calling the cleaners and handymen, and actually managing the guest messages. But here's the incredible thing about this business model that nobody talks about that I think makes it the most compelling. It's not just even the fact that you're cash flowing hand over fist without having to buy a single thing, but all of that day-to-day management stuff that I just mentioned, you can automate yourself. That's right. You could plug in a virtual assistant overseas for pennies on the dollar to deal with the guest messages. You can pop in a software that will automatically coordinate all of your cleaning. You could have your virtual assistant reach out to the handyman for you, and you could have your virtual assistant order all of the restocks and supplies for you. It's pretty insane. If you don't believe me, I have over 40 units in my Airbnb portfolio, some co-hosting, some arbitrage. I spend 1 to 2 hours a week managing it. I have plenty of videos explaining exactly how we do that, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. This video is all about co-hosting and how to get started. So for example, we've got this property. This is a beach house property that we co-host. Again, we paid for nothing, paid for no furniture, didn't sign any leases. And in the example here in this month, it had generated $16,635.83 in revenue on Airbnb. Now the total cleaning costs this month were $1,050. If you subtract that, we're left with a net revenue of $15,585.83. Now, our commission this month was 19% on this property. We walked away with a $2,961 check and 31 cents. Pretty insane. We cash flowed close to $3,000 in this month on this property without buying a single thing. Here's an example of another property that we co-host. This is in a suburban area. This is not in a vacation rental market. This property generated $9,767.19 this month. The cleaning costs were really high this month at $1,240. That leaves us a net revenue of $85,2719. We took a 12% commission this month and walked away with $1,023.26. Pretty amazing. Again, this is pretty amazing considering we did not pay for a single thing. We didn't have to invest any of our own money, and you could start this same business model without any capital, without any experience. You don't even need a good credit score to do this, honestly. You just need the hustle and the drive and the willingness to talk to property owners, and I'll talk a little bit more about later in this video how you can get started. Now, a question that comes up a lot is, how is this different from property management? Now, I want to just put a disclaimer out there. This is not legal advice. Every state has different regulations, different laws, and I am by no means a legal professional. But typically the main difference between property management and co-hosting is that a property manager actually will handle the inflow and the outflow of the funds, meaning they receive the payments and they distribute the payments to the property owner. And because of that, they will typically be required to have a property management license or a realtor license or both. Now, however, with co-hosting, the other benefit is that we actually have the property owners collect all the funds and then distribute the funds for us after we tell them how much the property made and how much is owed to us at the end of each month. This is another plus because depending on where you live, depending on your market, depending on the laws, this may not require you to have to get all that additional licensing and whatnot that I just mentioned earlier. So guys, there's a very compelling case as to why co-hosting is such a beneficial, low-risk business model for someone to start. And the beautiful thing is you can grow this portfolio by leveraging this method without needing lots of money. You can automate it, and now you've created an income stream that you can manage remotely from anywhere in the world. Because if you have a cleaning team on site and a handyman that you trust and a virtual assistant in place to manage the day-to-day and deal with your guest messages, you will never have to step foot on these properties again, which is pretty incredible. Now, let's move on to section 2 here, which is what opportunity is out there as a co-host. This is a very exciting topic because without the actual opportunity, then everything that I just mentioned means absolutely nothing. So first, let's talk about why landlords would want you to co-host their property. Now, the question comes up of what types of landlords and what types of properties are we going to be targeting for this? And they usually fall into a couple of buckets. One being, it is a property that a landlord already furnished and listed as a furnished rental, and we're simply reaching out to them and telling them, hey, you could make more money as a short-term rental, as an Airbnb, but you probably don't want to deal with the day-to-day, and that's where I come in. Now, another scenario might be a property that a landlord already tried to list on Airbnb, and it's very obvious when you look at the listing, they're not doing well. The photos are bad, the interior design's not good, the listing optimization isn't good, and therefore they're missing out on making so much money or potentially even losing money. And again, that's where you can step in as a co-host and say, hey, wait, I can help you make more money, I can improve this listing, and by the way, you can sit on your butt and collect rent and I'll take care of the day-to-day. And then finally, the third scenario is when it's a property listed for rent, like a regular unfurnished rental property, and you go to the landlord and say, hey, look, you're asking for $1,500 a month as a rental property, but this could actually make $4,000 a month as an Airbnb. Have you ever considered that? And then you basically walk them through furnishing it on their dime so they can make way more money. And then guess what? They can sit on their butt and collect rent. Now let's talk about why they would want to work with you, because this is a really big reason as to why there's so much opportunity out there as a co-host. The first is that they will make more money than they would with a regular tenant. They're now going to be listing the property as an Airbnb, as a short-term rental. Now the income potential is way higher than a regular rental property. Now the next component is that the property will be actually completely passive for them, because the landlord is now handing off those operations to you, which again, you can hand off the operations to your team and your softwares, but they are no longer involved in the day-to-day. They sit on their butt. Now they're making more money and the property's kept passive. The property is also kept clean. You're going to have cleaners there routinely to run your business. It's in your business's best interest. It's in the landlord's best interest that the property is kept clean routinely in order for you to keep getting bookings and get good reviews. So the point is, the property is always going to be in good shape. And then here is the biggest cherry on top. It is that if you serve a landlord once and they are satisfied with your service, they will continue to offer you more properties, which means so much opportunity for you to grow your business organically without you having to do additional work. Case in point, the very first property that Adam and I got as a co-host deal, the landlord got so used to this lifestyle of not having to manage anything and making more money that once he bought 2 beach house properties, he gave them both to us immediately as co-host deals, and we didn't have to do a single thing. So if you serve your clients once and they're happy, they will continue to keep giving you deals for the rest of your life. Now here's the second reason there's so much opportunity with co-hosting, and it's that co-hosting typically does not interfere with regulations nearly as much as something like Airbnb arbitrage, for example. Now again, Again, big disclaimer, not legal advice, but in more cities, the regulations around short-term rentals have to do with the property owner being the one who's listing the property. The cool thing is when you're a co-host, the property owner is still listed as the owner of the property on Airbnb, and you are listed as the co-host. So this means you can typically bypass more cities' regulations and still continue to profit from these properties without you having to go under the radar or do anything wishy-washy like you could with arbitrage. So the point is, with co-hosting, you legally have more access to more markets than you do with a model like arbitrage. Now, I'm still very much a fan of arbitrage. As a matter of fact, 90% of my portfolio is arbitrage, but there are just certain markets that I have a way easier time with co-hosting with from a regulations perspective than I do with arbitrage. So it gives me access to those few additional markets that I wouldn't have access to. Now here's the third opportunity with co-hosting for you, and it's that it provides virtually zero risk. You're not buying furniture. You are not signing a lease. You're not paying for cleaning. You're not paying for utilities. You're not paying for the expenses. So that means you do profit on day one. This again is a contrast from arbitrage, and a massive contrast from buying a property, because even with arbitrage, I'm shelling out $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on furniture. It might take me several months to actually be in the green. Now, if you're unfamiliar, I keep throwing out the term arbitrage. Arbitrage means that I'm renting the property, furnishing it, listing on Airbnb, and making a profit. I still really like that model for growing a scalable portfolio, but it does pose a little bit more risk than co-hosting. Co-hosting, there's no risk. You're literally profiting on day one. You have no expenses, which is tremendous. Now, the fourth opportunity for you as a co-host is the vast amount of properties out there that are very poorly listed on Airbnb that could use your help as a co-host to help the property owner make more money, and therefore in turn, you make more money. Case in point, I'm gonna bring up a screenshot that I pulled from AirDNA of a beach town market not too far from me in Ocean City, New Jersey. If you look at all these properties, guys, here's the insane thing. These properties are currently generating anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 per year on Airbnb, but look at how poorly they are listed. The photos are terrible. The interior design is so bad. The titles are bad. They have bad reviews. Here's my point, is imagine if you reached out to these property owners and said, hey, instead of you making $70,000, you could make $100,000. And all you need to do as the co-host is get better photos and touch up the decor and interior design a little bit. That means way more money for you, way more money for the landlord. Everybody's happy. Even if you just took as little as 10% commission on these properties, that means you could be profiting anywhere from $700 to $1,200 per month on each one of these units. If you really want to motivate yourself, pull up the Airbnb app in your local market and just scroll through the listings. You're going to see tons of operators that just are very poorly listed, bad photos, bad interior design. The pricing isn't optimized. You could really step in and help out. Now, the last major opportunity with co-hosting is this new feature on Airbnb known as the co-host network. So check this out. Airbnb actually released a feature within the Airbnb platform for property owners to reach out to people who are already on the platform as co-hosts and invite them to co-host their properties. Point being that so many people are looking to offload the day-to-day management of their Airbnbs and looking for co-hosts. So what this means for you is if you are listed as a co-host on the Airbnb platform for about a 3-month period and you meet their minimum criteria, property owners will be reaching out to you without you doing any work, inviting you to be a co-host. Now, of course, in order to get to this point, you need to have at least one property that you're co-hosting now so you build credibility on the platform. But guys, that means if you just get one decent deal and you have a decent reputation on the platform, in just a few months from now, you're gonna have property owners reaching out to you, asking you to take their properties as a co-host deal. This is pretty incredible. I've actually had people within my own community have up to 12 requests per month from landlords. So don't sleep on this. This is a feature that's not going anywhere because property owners are always going to want to offload the management. They buy the property for an investment. They don't buy the property to run a business. Therefore, they want to get the business stuff off their plate as quickly as possible. So, okay, guys, now you like the idea of co-hosting. Let's actually talk about how I would find my first co-hosting deal. There are 3 methods that I find very effective for finding co-hosting opportunities. The first are finding available rentals and pitching co-hosting. So what we're going to do here are find properties that are available for rent, reach out to the landlords directly, and basically convince them that they could make way more money as a passive Airbnb. Now, 2 platforms that I might use to do that would be apartments.com or hotpads.com. Both of these websites have a filter that will actually allow you to narrow down your search for rent by owner. So that way you can actually go to the landlords directly and skip the middlemen, skip the property managers, skip the realtors. That's when I would reach out to them directly and present your idea, present your services, and start networking. I'd refer back to some of the points earlier in this video on some of the things that you might say, which is they're going to make more money as a short-term rental. The property will now be passive. It will be kept clean. You're going to operate the day-to-day. It will make their life easier and they'll make more money, basically, is the moral of the story. Now, the second method to finding co-hosting deals is actually networking with investors and realtors. You can go to a site like meetup.com or the Bigger Pockets forum and find local real estate investing meetups near you. These will be filled with property owners, realtors looking to network with property investors, essentially anybody that you would need to talk to tell them that you're a short-term rental management company, that you're an Airbnb co-host, will be under the roof there. And now it's your job to just look the part, be professional, have a business card, and shake some hands. Again, the beautiful thing about this model, guys, is you're not buying anything, you have no expenses. All you need to do is network. So get out there, talk to people, let them know what you do, and that's all you have to do is tell them what you do. Now, obviously, if you have a website created, that will make you look more professional. If you have some sort of PDF or folder that breaks down, you have like a brochure that actually walks them through the process, that will be even more professional. But the point is if you keep putting your name out there, eventually someone's gonna need your service and remember who you are. And if you network with enough realtors that actually sell properties in vacation rental markets, think Jersey Shore markets and the like, then guess what they're going to do when they have somebody that's purchasing a property for short-term rental in those areas, and that person, that investor says, hey, do you know someone who can manage it for me? So now the third method, and this is my favorite method for finding co-host deals, is to actually just find failing Airbnbs. Go on the Airbnb platform and just scroll through your market and find properties that clearly have potential, but also clearly were not listed to the best of their ability. Bad photos, bad interior design, bad reviews. I can promise you that those property owners are pulling their hair out, they're not making money, and they're very frustrated. Now, you have to creatively be able to reach out to them because, of course, on the Airbnb platform, you can't just shoot them a message and solicit your service, but you can be smart about it by saying messages in a certain way on the platform. So my point is, send an inquiry, send a message to the property owner, try to engage in a conversation and work your way towards either getting a phone call or trying to take the conversation off platform. So guys, now you understand exactly what co-hosting is and why it's such a great opportunity in 2025 and 2026. So you're probably wanting to start talking to property owners to learn how to convey this, to learn how to pitch them so they want to work with you. If that's the case, I would recommend watching this video. I will link it somewhere on the screen here. And that video kind of walks you through some of the main points that I like to bring up when pitching property owners for arbitrage or co-hosting. Now, if you're not new to this concept and you've always wanted to start a cash flowing Airbnb arbitrage or co-hosting business so you can achieve financial freedom in 2025 and 2026, we have helped so many 9-to-5ers launch hundreds of profitable Airbnbs around the country through our Airpreneur mentorship, where we literally hold your hand through making your first $5,000 to $10,000 per month on Airbnb without having to buy any property. If that's something that interests you, there will be a link below in the description of this video to book a consultation call with my team. Go ahead and fill out that application, and then on the call, we'll discuss whether or not this is even a fit, whether or not we can actually achieve your goals and objectives. And if we feel like we can help you, then we'll talk about what it looks like to join. Otherwise, guys, this YouTube channel is loaded with content for starting with Airbnb without buying any property. Go and check out some other videos if you want some inspiration.